Join the Discord. Links in the description. Chainsaw Man Episode 10 left me emotionally devastated. And at the very same time, it left me itching for more. After a big set of episodes 8 and 10 were massive for Chainsaw Man. Pretty much this episode was just meant to build up a lot of things. So I'm very excited to jump into it. We're gonna break it down. We're gonna talk about Himeno and Himeno's sister and Aki. I think that is the most fascinating stuff to come out of this episode. And as well, the new Naruto training arc. Of course I'm joking, but let's go ahead and get right into it. So, as I stated, a lot of this episode in Chainsaw Man was, at least to me, very just emotionally devastating, because this comes right off the heels of Himeno's death, and we see a scene that I think is like really well played out in terms of its visual presentation and its symbolism. And of course, we're talking about Aki waking up in the hospital. There's like 3 or 4 things in this episode that I just thought were really genius in terms of that symbolism. So let's go ahead and break it down bit by bit this scene. We're just gonna go over all the Aki stuff first, actually, and then after that we'll go with the teacher stuff. But so basically, Aki wakes up in the hospital, and I immediately like the touch of Denji not feeding Aki apples. If you guys remember, way back when, in the very beginning of this series, Denji as well had a moment where he woke up in the hospital, and Aki was feeding him apples pretty much. He was cutting them up. He was actually cutting them up in really unique little patterns and stuff like that. He was very nice about it. Actually, now looking back, those apples kind of looked like a fox, so I guess that is very apropos. Aki definitely seems to show his support in ways that I think especially Power and Denji really don't in this episode, and I don't know if that's a bad thing necessarily. And I don't mean bad thing like it's badly written. I don't mean that. I just mean like in terms of a human being perspective. Because we do get a scene like right after this where Denji is like, I didn't feel sad when Himeno died, and I don't think I'd feel sad when Aki died, or definitely not Power, which I thought was very funny. Thinks he would be sad about Makima for a couple days, but he'd bounce back pretty quickly. So he has this realization that maybe Pochita has changed himself quite a bit. This really feeds back into the Aki stuff because Denji basically leaves his hospital room and he leaves Aki an apple instead of, the whole basket of apples that pretty much were promised to him. It's a very selfish, very, very selfish way of considering somebody. Aki as well, he's going through this moment where he's lost Himeno, and clearly he's shook up by it, because as he goes to take the cigarette into his mouth and flick the lighter to light a cigarette, which now we know, at least we have a generally good idea why he's smoking. It's not necessarily because of Himeno, because of another thing, because of his fox devil. He only has about 2 years left of life. So if you only have 2 years, might as well smoke it up, you know what I'm saying? But he goes to flick the cigarette, light it, smoke it, and he remembers Himeno, and he sort of breaks down. And this I felt for Aki so much here, because while we can talk about how the people of Chainsaw Man are a bunch of crazy dumbasses, at the very same time, these are still human beings, and they have human being emotions. And Aki is dealing with this loss, and he's obviously taking it hard somewhat. And I think by the end there, especially when Himeno's sister comes in, by the way, which I don't know if we're ever going to get to see Himeno's sister. At first, I actually did think it was Himeno's sister that walked in. It was either that, or I thought it would be like Aki had a sister or something. And the reason why I thought it was Himeno's sister to begin with is because character dies in like an old cartoon or an old anime. They get killed in one episode and they come back and it's like it's their sister and it's the exact same character. Exact same name, voice actress, all that stuff. That's what I thought here for some reason. I'm like, oh man, wouldn't that be funny if they brought Himeno back? And it's just Himeno's sister, and her name's Himeno, and she looks exactly like Himeno. That'd be really funny. But I like that part as well, because Himeno's sister hands Aki a letter, and it seems to be addressed not to Aki, which is what I thought it would be addressed to at first, like, send to Aki in case of my death, which that part is obviously true, but this letter is addressed to Himeno's father, or their father, I should say. And it talks about how Himeno has been trying to get Aki to quit, to join a more private division of something they're putting together. So it seems like Himeno's family has some sort of involvement, that's some sort of a similar kind of job of sorts to public safety in that regard. And it seems that maybe Aki he wasn't listening to Himeno, and Himeno was trying to like ease him into leaving and joining another thing, and it just never worked out. And that's kind of sad, I think. Pretty sad. It's really interesting, because I don't think Himeno is exactly a great human being, but the human being that is inside of Himeno is so fascinating. She, like, absolutely a predator, first of all, taking advantage of Denji like that. However, everything else about her seems to be this, like, was this person that was conflicted with so many things, trying to do the right thing, mostly. And that's what I think is really fascinating about her character. It's just this battle of almost yin and yang, and her caring for Aki, honestly, to me, is what defines Himeno's character. And usually I'd hate that in a female character or a male character, like their whole character is defined by liking another person. But I think it really works for Himeno pretty well in this regard, because it is an avenue for Aki's character to develop even further. And plus, it makes sense. And it makes sense because of this letter. She's not just a character that loves a dude and that's her whole character. There's a greater presence beyond this, which is very fascinating and very interesting. So later on in the episode, however, after the whole teacher stuff, Aki goes to make a deal with the future devil. This is going to be interesting, because we know from this episode, Tendo and the other guy, we don't know this other guy's name, we just know Tendo, which, by the way, still, I think now we have 2 girls in the ranking for best girls, and I think that's only because they're not crazy psychos, and that is Himeno's sister. Sorry, Himeno is definitely crazy, but Tendo. Those are now the 2 girls, and it's only because we don't know much about them. But what we do know about the future devil is that 2 people are contracted to it, at least at some point. I don't know if it's currently. One of them gave up half of their lifespan, and the other their eyes and sense of taste and smell. The future devil, what is it? A giant floating eyeball. So cool. This scene, quite easily in terms of art and scene composition, was absolutely phenomenal. This was extremely cinematic. I mean, it feels like anytime Aki touches any sort of scene, any sort of frame, they make sure to frame it in such a way that is cinematic, beautiful, and extremely detailed in ways that other scenes may not get that. Usually Aki scenes are quite blue, they're like a baby blue, they're kind of washed out. This one still had sort of that baby blue tinge, but it was mostly browns and blacks and grays and hardened gunmetal steel is kind of what it looked like, and it had an orange amber glow to it. It was so amazing. Then when you juxtapose that sort of colors with the black suits and, of public safety and those uniforms, it just works so well. So extremely well, in my opinion, that it sort of impressed me more than I think it should have, because it was such a simple scene. But yeah, I wonder what he's coming there for. Obviously, it's probably to make a contract with the devil, and if so, what is the contract going to look like? Is Aki going to lose both of his eyes? Is Aki going to lose his taste of sense and smell? What is the future devil going to want? Because we know from this episode, he only has 2 years of life left from his fox devil that he's contracted. So he's going to take on another contracted spirit, and if it, half his lifespan again, he's got a year left. And honestly, usually in other series, I would suspect characters like Aki to sort of get like a pseudo Deus Ex Machina treatment, where it's like, oh, like they have like a year left, 2 years left. They're gonna beat that. Like the show's gonna reward forgive the character of that thing, and they're gonna find a way to save Aki. Nope, not for this character. I believe absolutely, based on right now, this could change. My theory is he is definitely gonna die, probably somewhere in the next season of Chainsaw Man. It would be interesting if they did it this season, but the jury is still out. I'll let you know probably in the next episode if I think that is going to change. Honestly, Aki probably in my top 3 characters in this show so far. Really good character. So as for the teacher stuff, this is pretty simple. I'm not going to keep you too long because this video is already getting pretty long in the tooth, but teacher, he's a very fascinating character as well, just because he's a fun character. He's a no-nonsense character. The way he's introduced is we don't even know his name. Makima just wants to make sure that public safety is strengthened, but she can't really strengthen it with more men and women right now because, well, they don't have many men and women to pick from. A lot of their men and women were eliminated in the last battle. So their whole thing in this episode was to get basically Denji in power just to train them. and their trainer is teacher. And it very reminiscent. I say Naruto because I think it's just an easy thing to compare it to, but don't worry, it's not like I'm not actually comparing these two. Just similar things where it's like kind of reminded me of like Jiraiya Sensei and stuff like that from Naruto, or even Kakashi, I think maybe is a better analog. It was so fun to see this. Like I haven't seen something like this in a very long time, and I think Chainsaw Man, they put a spin on it, I think, in a way that I think is more unique than just trying to subvert your expectations. It's basically just a dude that just keeps killing them until they're able to defeat him back. He's just going to keep hunting them. And we have like some really cool stuff here. We have like this one plan they cook up where Denji and Power try to basically hunt down Teacher and ambush him using bottles of water and raining down blood spikes and throwing a spike through a door. And Denji, while that's happening, is going to jump him. But at the very end of the day, still, it wasn't enough. And I like how Teacher's like, that was pretty good. That wasn't bad. But you guys suck because now Power is anemic because she lost all of her blood, and Denji, you didn't see how like I could dodge all your attacks. You never saw any of that stuff coming, so you suck. And then he throws a knife at Denji, and he dies again. Also, as well, at the end of their first day of training, I like how Power starts to hit Denji in the head because his brain is not healing in the right way, and he's slowly, I guess, becoming like a vegetable of sorts. I like that. I thought that was really funny. It's kind of like hitting the TV, like those old tube TVs. You got to hit the side of it for the signal to come back in and for the picture to return the way it was. I know a lot of people won't understand that, but I do, sadly. And I like a little bit of dark humor in my shows. So, and Chainsaw Man has so much of dark humor. But that was pretty much Chainsaw Man episode 10. It was really good in my opinion. Like I said, very emotionally devastating. The stuff with Aki absolutely was so good in this episode. But if you have your own thoughts and opinions on Chainsaw Man episode 10, actually share those down in the comments below. I'm pretty interested to see what you guys think about this episode because this is the big episode after the last two big episodes. What do you think we're going to get for episodes 11 and 12? We only got 2 more weeks left of this show, so tell me what you think about Chainsaw Man so far and if you're excited for the last couple. I'm really, really interested to hear what you think, especially stuff about Aki, Himeno's sister. Are we going to see her again? Also, Denji calling Power Powie? That's questionable. So I do a One Piece series on Patreon that's patron supported pretty much completely, and it's really good. We're about to be on Arabasta. So if you're getting into One Piece or you just want to see a beginner watch One Piece again, check those out. Those videos are for free on YouTube, and for Patreon you get 3 videos in advance. So thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.